Welcome to the Create Your Happy podcast, where the mission is to empower women in their journey of self-discovery. Here we explore how to fully embrace our humanness, find our unique voice, and understand that through unconditional love and conscious relationships, we have the power to change the world. I'm your host, Christy Holt, your one and only Happiness Hussy, adventure guide, and conscious funpreneur. I'm on a heartfelt mission to change the world one beautiful soul at a time. Are you ready to elevate your relationships to the next level? I've got you. It's time for a messy fucking beautiful adventure. It's time to create your happy. Hello, gorgeous humans. Welcome back for another episode of the Create Your Happy podcast. I'm your host, Christy Holt, aka the Happiness Hussy. And today we're going to be diving into another myth that's been sabotaging all kinds of relationships for ages. And this is the idea that you can change your partner. Let's get right into it. How many times have you heard someone say, I can change him, or she'll change for me? Now, this myth is so deeply ingrained in our culture, but today we are going to dissect it. Now, society often tells us to contort ourselves to fit into a certain mold. This creates expectations in relationships that are not only unrealistic, but can also be damaging. Now, these societal norms actually make us uncomfortable with both accepting ourselves and with accepting others, leading us to believe that we probably need to change in order to be acceptable. People cling to the idea that nobody's perfect, which is true, by the way, but this one has far too many people hanging on to relationships that are less than ideal. So we've got to find some balance here between the complacency of nobody's perfect and the unrealistic expectations that we can find a perfect partner. Now, there is this notion that if someone is the one, that they'll be willing to change for you. And that if they're unwilling to change, that it must be something wrong with either them or you. But let's debunk this, because sometimes it's just not a fit. And that is absolutely okay. That's going to happen. It doesn't mean that there is anything wrong or bad about either person involved in this scenario. The problem here, believing that you can change your partner, is ultimately setting you up for disappointment and resentment. It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, and it just doesn't work. In my own experience, I have seen firsthand how this belief can erode the foundation of a relationship, and what ends up happening is you end up focusing on what could be rather than appreciating what is. Now, this head in the sky sort of situation can really lead us down a pathway to unhealthy relationship patterns, because when we are living in the what could be, we are often oblivious to the reality. And so as we're rewriting the story, as we're living the dream version of our relationship, we might be missing really important signs that are showing up in our reality. Now, the key to healthy relationships is acceptance, accepting your partner for who they are, warts and all. And here's the kicker with this whole situation. The truth is the only person you can change is yourself. So we really need to let go of both the idea of finding a perfect person, because that isn't going to happen. And we need to also release the idea that love is enough to change another person. This idea, again, that nobody's perfect can result in us settling for less than ideal relationships. And the truth is, perfection is mere illusion. So while we're not going to find a perfect person, we absolutely ought not to settle for a relationship with someone who isn't at least perfect for us. Now, imperfect people that complement one another, that are a complementary match, that will challenge and help each other and support each other, is where we want to go. Imperfect people doing growth, doing self-awareness, doing personal discovery, and ultimately just showing up and doing their very best is what's going to create a relationship that is actually founded on unconditional love and acceptance. This intentionality behind the relationship is everything. Now, In my past relationship, I really found myself focusing on the areas that I wanted my partner to change or grow. And what I found was the only thing that was growing was my bitterness and my resentment. But in my current relationship, I discovered that focusing on my own growth has not only made me happier, but it's also positively influenced my partner. Because when I came to this relationship as a whole ass human, I was able to encourage my partner to do the same. We are far from, perfect people, but we are perfect for one another because we encourage and challenge one another to become our best, both individually and as a team, while also accepting each other for who we are. Now, what to do when you have a partner who just won't change? I've been there. You might be wondering, what do you do if you've requested changes or, you've laid out some boundaries and they just won't listen? Now, here's the truth behind this. They are responding to you quite clearly. And while you may think they're not listening, it might actually be you that's not listening. Because believe it or not, their answer, their response is a very clear answer, whether they answer you or not. And instead of ignoring their very clear response, I invite you to believe them, believe their words, believe their actions. I know this is a harsh truth, but they're not obligated to change for you. And unfortunately, it's very unlikely that they will, because people only change when they decide to. They've got to be motivated and want it for themselves. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. And if you're trying to get someone to change who just simply isn't ready and they're not willing to do so, it's going to feel like an endless battle, no matter which way you slice it. So if your partner isn't changing and it's causing relationship problems, you have a choice. If you want to create peace and love in your life, you can make a couple of choices. You can stay miserable. That is always a valid choice. But knowing that if you do nothing differently, this choice is going to be your default. So remembering that you have a choice and doing nothing is a choice. The second thing you can do is you can begin to accept them as they are, releasing your expectations of them changing. Now, this can be a simple choice to make, but I recognize that this is a lot harder to put into practice. However, this powerful choice can completely change your experience. And that's the goal, isn't it? Now, if their behavior and everything that you're experiencing is just not something you can tolerate any longer, you have one more option, and that is you can make a change. You can create new boundaries, you can change the terms of the relationship, or you can consider exiting the relationship entirely. Now, at the end of the day, you deserve to be happy, and the only person that can be responsible for making you happy is you. So instead of giving away your power, which, by the way, you can't actually do, but you certainly can act as though you have, and this is basically the same thing. So instead of giving away your power, listen, observe, and take radical responsibility for yourself. Other people might not change, but you can. And by choosing yourself, you empower yourself to create the happy and healthy relationships that you desire and absolutely fucking deserve. You ready to break free from self-doubt and embrace a life of empowerment? Introducing the Unstuck for Women Daily Self-Discovery Journal, the ultimate companion to my international best-selling book, Unstuck for Women. This beautifully designed journal will take you on a transformative 90-day journey of gratitude, self-discovery, and personal growth. Each day, you'll dive deep into powerful insights, prompts, and exercises that build confidence and self-love. Align your actions with your desired feeling state and watch as your life transforms. This journal is your key to unlocking the extraordinary woman within you. So get ready to embark on a journey of self-discovery and personal growth like never before. You can order your copy of the Unstuck for Women Daily Self-Discovery Journal today. Unleash your limitless potential. Let's talk a little bit here about how the way you show up impacts every single relationship that you have. Here are the straight facts. When you are not authentically yourself, you simply cannot feel truly seen, heard, loved, or accepted. This self-preserving safety net of keeping those less desirable parts of you hidden away actually prevents you from experiencing the fullness of what relationships can truly offer. And by safely protecting yourself and your heart from the risk of heartbreak, you actually seal the deal and experience this heartbreak all by yourself before another can cause it. So perhaps now you can see how by doing everything that you can to avoid disappointment and hurt, you actually create the disappointment and hurt in your experience right now. And while it might feel safer to guard your heart, it's definitely not going to lead to these outcomes that you truly want. Now, my own journey of self-discovery has shown me that the more authentically I live, the more I attract the people who really, truly appreciate the real me. I used to wear a ton of masks, and I used to spend a lot of time waiting and expecting my partner to change and people around me to change. And in fact, I tolerated all kinds of words and actions that crossed my personal boundaries, and yet I stayed quiet because I didn't want to create conflict, and I was a bit too afraid to make a change. Now, what happened was I was going through life, and I'm going to use an analogy here that I share quite often, and this is the one of driving home on autopilot. And I'm sure that you have all done this at some point or another. You're driving home, but you know the way. Your mind is overwhelmed and overloaded with plenty of thoughts. And when you arrive home, you realize that you don't remember stopping at any of the stop signs or the stoplights. You don't, in fact, really remember the drive at all. You were driving on autopilot. And when you got home, it's kind of like, well, how did I get here? Because I don't remember the drive. And this is what happened in my relationship. And I had this sort of holy shit moment where I realized, how did I get here? I did not remember quite tolerating all of the things that must have led to that moment, but yet there I was. And in that moment, I realized, holy shit, I am the common denominator in all of my problems, which initially took me down a peg because, that was a tough one to swallow. But after a moment, I also realized that this was a truly empowering moment that actually was a catalyst for massive transformation in my life. When I realized that not only am I the common denominator in the problems, but I am the one to save myself. I am the one to come up with the solutions. I was the one who was going to make a change. And so here's what I finally realized and what allowed me to create the most incredible relationships. Unconditional love starts with you. And when you fully accept and love yourself, you set the stage for relationships where both parties can be their fully authentic selves. And in fact, by doing so, you give everyone around you permission to be their true selves. Now, those that are meant to be in your inner circle will become more clear. And when you allow people to be who they are truly meant to be, those who are not that will simply fall away. I know that this can feel really scary, but I assure you that it's all worth it when you finally find those people who truly love and accept you for who you are. I mean, imagine how freeing it feels to live a life with no masks, no perfection, no struggling to keep everyone else around you happy. Let yourself imagine the anxiety falling away, being replaced with peace and joy. Your life just full of love, full of authentic expression. And honestly, this is how a peace that transcends words becomes available. So here's your challenge for the week. I invite you to identify one thing that you wish you could change about your partner. For example, maybe you wish that they were a little bit more affectionate. Now, I'm going to ask you to dig deep. Let's flip this around. And instead of saying, I wish they were more affectionate or whatever, fill in your own desire, and flip it around on yourself. For example, I wish I were more affectionate. And reflect on this. Could I be more affectionate? Is this something that you could actually work on within yourself? And if yes, you now have your homework or your love work for the week? And if no, then you might want to dig deeper and consider your choices. What I mean is, this is about you. And while trying to change your partner is a futile effort, you are going to see massive shifts when you take radical responsibility for yourself. In my past marriage, I simply couldn't bring myself to be more affectionate. And this was because there was just such an emotional distance between us that it felt as though being more affectionate was physically impossible. It really just didn't feel safe. And so if you're in a situation where it doesn't actually feel safe to make these changes, I implore you to consider your other options. Because when it comes to staying in a relationship that doesn't feel safe, this is not going to be you creating your best life. You need to be in an environment where it is safe for you to create, it is safe for you to express, it is safe for you to discover and share who you authentically are. And essentially, the likelihood of you being able to experience the outcomes that you long for and desire in this sort of situation where you don't feel safe, the likelihood is pretty low. The truth is, you deserve the love that you crave and you can have it. It's your right to have it. So if you're struggling with this, consider checking out my mini course, Love Reimagined. It is designed to help you to gain confidence in yourself in order to change your relationship experience from the inside out. Or if you'd like a little bit more tailored mentorship, I would be happy to have a conversation. This is really about meeting you right where you're at and creating the relationship of your dreams. And even if your partner is unwilling, there are things that we can do to shift your experience. Sometimes even a small perspective shift can be a huge game changer. I've seen it time and time again that shifting yourself changes the relationships with those around you. At the end of the day, your happiness and peace is at stake, and you're the only one who can create it for yourself. Coming up in the rest of the season, we are going to be diving deep into topics like people-pleasing, boundaries, unmasking the perfection illusion, and ultimately learning how to become a boundary boss. So that is a wrap for today. Please remember to embrace the messy fucking beautiful adventure that is life. I love you. Let's go do some epic shit, shall we? Thank you so much for listening to today's show. I trust you were inspired to take back your power and create your happy. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love to hear from you. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share the show with the women in your life who could use a little more inspiration today. If you'd like to connect or explore the additional resources mentioned in this episode, you can find those details and links in the show notes below. As always, get out there, have fun, be you, and create your happy.